Mike here with Dawg TV Adventures. A buddy of mine wanted to go backpacking for the first time, and a lot of people have asked me about backpacking, and most of them have never gone. But if you're interested in backpacking, I thought I'd do a little multi-part series about what you need to do to get ready for backpacking, and some other information about doing it correctly and safely. So I'm going to start off at the beginning as trip prep and what you need to do to get ready before you go. And so first, one of the most important things when you're backpacking is physical condition. So you should be in good physical condition. Obviously, if you're really badly out of shape and you put a lot of weight on your back and start traipsing through the high mountains, you're going to, have a difficult time and increased risk of injury. So physical conditioning is important, and so getting out and walking on a regular basis. If you have a day pack, carrying the day pack, so you have a little weight on your shoulders, get your traps used to carrying a load a little bit, and so forth is a good idea. And of course, other types of things like running and cycling and whatever that you enjoy is great. So you don't have to just walk, but some sort of training program to get yourself into decent shape. And then what determines that you're in good shape? So you can go by a number of different measures. The 12-minute test is a good one. How far can you run in 12 minutes? And so if you do the 12-minute test and you measure in the good category, you're good to go. You can do pretty much anything. So you can look that up on the internet under the 12-minute test. I'm sure you'll find it. Another way of going is looking at your resting heart rate. If you're exercising on a regular basis and in decent condition, your resting heart rate should be below 60 beats a minute. If it's not, then you're probably not good enough shape for any kind of serious trip. And also, let's talk a little bit about what a serious trip is. I think most people that we talk to think backpacking is hiking in a few miles to some lake, fishing, and then hiking out the next day after they spent the night, or maybe 2 nights at the most. I don't consider that backpacking. So if you consider that backpacking, then you can pretty much get away with all kinds of nonsense just hiking in and hiking out. Backpacking to me is going in for a reasonable length of time, which is for us usually just over a week, 8 to 9 days. And you're covering some decent ground, you're doing day hikes when you're in there, that kind of thing. So you're actually able to explore the area, you're spending multiple nights there. Going in, going back out is almost no different than a day hike, other than you have to make yourself dinner and then hike out the next morning. So it's not really backpacking. If you consider it backpacking, then you're probably some sort of goofball. Checking my notes here, there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention besides physical conditioning, and that's first aid skills. So some basic first aid skills are helpful, and one book which I would highly recommend is called Wilderness Medicine, Beyond First Aid, and it's by William Forgy. It's an excellent book. I think he's up to a 7th edition, which is about to be released. You can get the 6th. I think the 7th isn't quite out yet. I really enjoyed the guy's sense of humor. I thought it was an amusing book, but a lot of people probably would be bored to tears reading stuff about first aid. But he goes over a lot of different things, and so one of the things you need to really consider when you're out there is there's nobody there to help you. It's just you. So if something goes wrong, you need to be able to help yourself, and I think people have gotten overly dependent on 911, and there's a lot of good examples of people doing really dumb things when they're out in the wilderness because they think somebody's going to rush in and help them. A classic example is the teenagers that were taken up to Alaska and given bear training and wilderness training over the span of a few weeks, and then they were left on their own for 3 days. And they got attacked by a grizzly bear, and so they had packed their pepper spray into their packs, which is one of the stupidest things you can do. And I'm sure if the outfit that was training them had any sense whatsoever, they would have told them not to do that, but they did it anyway. And then when they were being mauled, their whole group was being mauled by this bear, one after the other. When one of them got free and was going through his pack, what did he dig out? He didn't dig out the pepper spray, which is the only thing that was going to save him. He dug out the emergency beacon. And of course, by the time he got the emergency beacon out, the bear was on top of him and attacking him, and on and on and on and on. And eventually, when the bear attack was over, and they did press the emergency beacon, it took 12 hours before anybody got there. Now think about that, 12 hours. You got a lethal bear that's trying to kill you, and likely could have. In this case, they got lucky and they had some serious injuries, but they survived. And the only thing that was going to stop that attack is hosing that bear down with pepper spray or shooting it if you had a firearm, which is even better. And instead, what they did is they tried to call 911. And that stupid mentality, which is super prevalent in cities, is going to get you killed. And in the rural areas, people tend to think about taking care of themselves and not asking the fire department to rush to their aid every time their barbecue light's on fire. So if you're a city slicker and your first go-to is to beg somebody else for help, backpacking is probably not your thing. And if you really want to try backpacking, you need to get out of that mentality right away. So the Wilderness Medicine Beyond First Aid book is an excellent book. If you're out in an area with little water or something, and you're hiking along with somebody and your buddy dislocates his kneecap, what are you going to do? Do you know how to reset somebody's kneecap? I know how to reset somebody's kneecap. How are you going to get that person up and moving? Because they can't sit there. You're in an area with no water. They're going to dehydrate. You need to get them up and moving before they're even in more trouble. And so you need to think about those types of things. And the book covers lots and lots of different practical problems that you could run into while you're out backpacking. So, I would highly recommend reading through a book like that. There are probably other books that cover, first aid type things and things that are a little bit more than what people consider first aid. That's why it's called Beyond First Aid. It goes into other types of things. What happens if somebody has an appendicitis and so forth, and suggestions that you can take in different types of medical crisis. So I'd highly recommend looking at something like that. As well as the physical conditioning as your trip prep. Another thing that you might want to read up on is navigation. So, you're going to need some navigational skills. Now, you don't have to be able to navigate with a sextant and all this other kind of stuff, but you need to be able to orient a map, look at surrounding features, use a compass, and determine basically what direction you should be heading and stay on path and that kind of stuff. And if you can't do that, then you probably should take a course. Or have somebody show you how to do those things when you go backpacking. And one of the most critical things that I would recommend is if you've never backpacked before, for God's sake, don't do it by yourself, and don't do it with other people who've never backpacked before. Go find somebody like me, which my friend wanted to go and learn about backpacking, that actually knows about the wilderness, knows about navigation, knows about basic stuff, so they can train you and work with you while you're out there, so you get the hang of it before you go out there winging it on your own. Hundreds of people every year end up seriously injured or disappear forever in the wilderness, and unless you go to the areas, the ranger stations where they post people's pictures, haven't seen this person since 2008 and he was in this area and stuff, you don't realize how many people get into trouble. So take some serious thought about your safety, and make sure you go with somebody who knows what they're doing the first few times until you kind of get the hang of it. When you're comfortable going on your own, then you can try it, but I wouldn't recommend doing it without some prior experience with somebody who knows what they're doing. In addition, on the trip planning, you also need to find a route. So you need to look at trails, trail books. If you're hiking in the Sierras or in California, this California hiking book is an excellent book. It's one we've used for eons, and you can find it on Amazon. And so it's an excellent source of places you can day hike and backpack. And then, of course, you've got to have a map. So if you are going into an area, you need to find the appropriate map for that area that shows trails and terrain and that kind of thing before you take off. And there's maps for virtually every place on the planet. So wherever you're going, make sure you get a good map. And then as part of your routing, you want to look at the map ahead of time, and you want to determine places where you're going to stay based on the topography. If you can't read a map, that's another thing you need to learn about the topo lines and level and unlevel ground, where you might want to stop for as far as water and so forth. And so you have to plan out your route before you take off using that map, and then take it with you so that you can stay on track and and in the event that you know, you're trying to cross between trails or something, you know where the major features are, mountains, lakes, and so forth, so you can continue on track. So those are a couple of the major areas you need to cover for trip prep, and I can't cover everything in this video series, but there's some really good wilderness basic books out there. So if you want to get a book on backpacking, there's tons of them out there. Go out on Amazon and they'll go through all the stuff I'm going to talk about in more detail about planning your trip, getting in condition, first aid, navigation, as well as what to pack, and on, which I'm going to get to some of that stuff in the next series. But so that's kind of part one there. Is I just wanted you to really think about a backpacking trip is not like going to a hotel and you just, hey, I feel like going, and you throw some stuff into a pack and you disappear. You need to do some prep work to begin with. You need to be in decent shape. You need to make sure you get all the right stuff together. You need to know you have the right skills. You understand the area and terrain and weather you're going into, etc., etc. And so that's the nuts and bolts of the beginning stage of a backpacking trip. And then in my next video, we'll go into things like what to bring and so forth. So until next time, stay frosty.